Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Penny Dreadful City of Angels. A great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I really enjoyed that beginning part. I thought was kind of interesting, where we see, at first I was like, okay, so is this like an angel and demon thing? Because they're kind of weighing about humanity and stuff like that, and Natalie Dormer's character is just very much oh, I don't need to do much. I just got to let humans be themselves. All I have to do is give them permission to be bad, and they will be bad. Because that's just in her mind, it's that's human nature. All it takes is a spark. And obviously, Santa Muerta, we kind of learn later on. I'm sure I'm butchering that. I'm sorry. My Spanish is terrible. Because I know literally no Spanish. I know a couple things in Spanish, but that's about it. Regardless, the fact of the matter is she kind of has no compassion for humans, which is so interesting considering what she's supposed to be. She's supposed to be the one who carries human souls to heaven and stuff like that. So it's interesting that you don't care about humans. It's interesting because obviously Natalie Dormer's character burns the fields and everything, which ends up killing a young Santiago's dad. And it's interesting because it's for one, I was that's interesting because the supernatural is kind of happening out there in the open, but I don't think anyone can see it. She's just there burning the field, but no one can see it. So because obviously even in the original show, it's the supernatural stuff that went down, only a select few people were aware of it going down. Regardless, tangents and all that. But Santiago runs to his dad, and Santa Muerte has him in her hands. And as Santiago got closer, she just pushed him away. And it's this moment of just she's correct. Out of any of the souls there that are probably dying, she held on to him, and she's just looking out, and it's trying to, and then Santiago's kind of looking back at her. So we fast forward, he's older now, he's now a detective, which obviously that in itself comes with its own complications because, it's for one, him being, Mexican, him, and the fact of the matter is being a cop, especially this time frame, it's not the easiest. He ends up finding out later on from his partner, Lewis, who, interesting enough, is played by Nathan Lane. I didn't catch that. I was holy shit, Nathan Lane. The fact of the matter is his partner, because he's asked him later on, why did you decide to be my partner? And Lewis was because literally no one else wanted to be your partner. And I'm wondering, I'm curious with the way things kind of go later on. Is Lewis Jewish? Is that what that's supposed to mean? Maybe that's why he kind of joined up with him, because it's I'm kind of an outsider, you're kind of an outsider, and or kind of not just necessarily in this country, but even just in this world, the backgrounds we come from, kind of sadly, people only kind of look at that, and that becomes the most important thing sometimes. That's what I'm wondering, but maybe that's not the case. It's just stuff I'm skipping around, but when he was looking at all that Nazi shit going down, that Peter being that basically, oh yeah, when there's a fight going down, I keep my children away from it. The U.S. should just do that. Stuff that's going over there in Europe, that's Europe's problem. And it's that's actually interesting because when you think back on history, the U.S. stayed the hell away from what would eventually become World War II. I don't know if it was necessarily World War II at that time, but I think I could be mistaken. It's been years. I haven't been in high school for a long time. I haven't heard history in a long time. But my understanding, if I remember correctly, it took the U.S. a long ass time before they got involved. So it's a situation of it's just kind of, no, protect your kids. Stay the hell out. That ain't your business. Had nothing to do with you. I mean, it has everything to eventually do with us because obviously it's a world war. It brought everyone in. And it's just, eventually everyone kind of took apart in that war for different reasons. We're only this is 1938, so we're on the cusp of it. Because I know the war doesn't end until 45, but around this time is around when it started, I think. Like I said, it could be mistaken. Like I said, my knowledge of history is very, very non-existent at this point in time. But nevertheless, the way Lewis got he's let's get out of here. The moment he was hearing Peter say all that stuff. And then later on, we see Peter has a board of a whole bunch of Nazi stuff. So that makes me think, he might not even necessarily be Jewish. He could just be of this, descent of anyone that's being persecuted by the Jewish. Not the Jews, but Jewish people, but by Nazis in general. So but that's why I think there's why him and Santiago kind of worked well together. Why he kind of is willing to look at Santiago the way no one else is willing to, Because even him backing him up, and it's oh, that cop was grilling Santiago, and he's hey, you want me to tell people about that thing about, it's I got some dirt on you, want me to tell? And the dude's come on, Lewis, why are you taking this so seriously? It was a joke. Yeah, funny joke, dude. But nevertheless, like, it's so interesting, especially when we find out the truth about like Natalie Dormer's character. I thought was really interesting because at first she pops up again. I'm like, wait, what? You got a German accent and everything. I'm like, what the hell is this about? And I'm like, oh, what? I'm like, and the moment they're walking away, I'm like, that's some kid you paid to pretend to be your child or something. It's like, oh no, we went a step further. It's a part. She basically split off a part of herself. Like, she created a little kid from herself. I'm like, so are you just straight up a demon, or are you something else entirely? Like, whatever the case may be. I would assume so because like Santa Muerta is supposed to be she's supposed to be a angel, and this is her sister, so I'd assume like, you know, she's kind of, which is interesting, kind of like a yin and a yang, obviously holding true essence of the original show of like kind of light versus darkness, but their situation is different because like she not even representing the light. Santa Weta, she kind of represents just kind of like the passing of the souls or whatever. Like, so it's not like she's necessarily on humanity's side. She's got her job and she does it. Beyond that, she doesn't care for humans. She doesn't get involved. But it seems like Natalie Dormer's character is stoking the flames. It's like, oh, she stroked the flames in Peter, and then later on we see her stroking the flames of the councilman Townsend. So that's the really interesting thing. It's just kind of like, oh, humanity, they need an excuse. They just need a little nudge in the right direction, and I give it. So I'm thinking that's what we're going to see throughout this season is her constantly popping up as different people stroking humanity, you know, trying to go down, because she has little faith in humanity. She's like, oh, humanity sucks anyway. Humans suck. They're terrible. They're animals. They're monsters. All they just need is an excuse to be the monsters they already are. So that's really interesting. But what was really interesting is the moment we saw Peter, I was like, what? If you're unaware, that's the same actor who played Frankenstein's firstborn on the original show. So it's like, I was like, okay, so you're here, and I was like, what? I was like, that's interesting. I wonder, is that just supposed to be like fan casting, or was that supposed to be just kind of like a little funny like homage or something, or is there a deeper reason behind that? Because the big thing is, I'm curious about, because this show is labeled as a spinoff, and I think what I've read was a spiritual success. I've not read too much about the show beyond that. So I don't know. I didn't know what to expect walking into this. I've not seen a trailer because at the time I hadn't caught up with the original show. I have at this point in time. I've seen all of the original show. Loved it. That ending, holy shit, gut punch. Nevertheless, so that makes me, you know, wonder, like, is it supposed to be like the original show is definitely its own story? Because I think even the creator of it, who's the same person behind this, was basically like, that was Vanessa's story. So is it just that's its own package deal, and this is its own package deal? So is there going to be connected continuity, or is it supposed to be like, kind of look at that as its own story, like I said, like almost like an anthology of like, that's its own package story, this is going to be its own? Maybe I'm curious to see going forward. Like I said, I've not seen the trailer, so I don't know if there's going to be any direct correlations between. I mean, because to be fair, I mean, these could coexist, because there's only been like 36 years in between the ending of Penny Dreadful and now. Obviously, we're like across the pond when it comes to that situation from London to California, but regardless, well, it's more than kind of across the pond. I mean, especially depending on which direction of the globe you're going. Regardless, you get one, you know, tangents and all that. But nevertheless, I thought that was interesting because it seemed like, oh, a loving father and stuff like that. I also noticed that his wife, at first I was like, is that Piper Parable? I couldn't tell. More often than not, when I see her, she's kind of like, she's usually a dirty blonde. So I was like seeing her with like brunette hair. I wasn't 100% sure. I'm sure I've probably seen her with brunette hair before, but more often than not, I see her with like dirty blonde hair. So I was like, is that her? Looking at the credits at the end, it totally was her. I was like, I thought so. That was crazy. Also, Santiago and Lewis's captain is Brett Spiner. I'm like, that's interesting. He's also like, it's interesting too for me because I'm sure most people would know him from Star Trek. I think specifically Star Trek Next Generation, the one with Picard with Sir Patrick Stewart. The fact of the matter is, I'm not a Star Trek person, so but for me, it's interesting because he's in a horror show, like kind of like this supernatural kind of horror show, and prior to this, he was in a supernatural horror show called Outcast. To be fair, there's a time difference in between, but regardless, tangents and all that. But regardless, all of that, the whole point is that the fact is, obviously he's kind of like a Nazi here in America, which is interesting. I mean, I guess that was a thing. I mean, because obviously these, like, Penny Dreadful plays with like historical stuff, probably taking their own liberties, but there probably is truth to the history and stuff like that. But it's just kind of like, that's interesting. I mean, to be fair, I shouldn't be too surprised because, like, Nazi scientists found their way here to the U.S. after everything went down after World War II. I mean, hunters the TV show. Once again, all this Nazi stuff, it's interesting timing. But nevertheless, I was curious like to see what they were setting his story up to be, and that's it. Because he's telling because Santiago's mom Maria works as a maid in his house, and he's like, oh, keep my wife, she needs to harass, no drinks. I wonder, does she know what her husband's into and up to? Is that what it is? I mean, obviously the kids are ignorant to it. They're like, oh, this is our loving dad and stuff like that, which is just, it's interesting to see. Well, it's interesting because that actor went from playing a monster who was more human than anyone else to potentially just a straight up pure through and through monster. It's an interesting situation to say the least. Also, it seems like, cause we're really leaning into that because obviously it seems like the Fuhrer in particular is wanting to back the councilman. It's like, oh, we want to put you to become mayor because we want you in a position where it kind of can be almost a pro quo type of situation, because they believe Los Angeles more so than New York is going to be the centerfold of this country, because it's like, oh, New York kind of represents the old, Los Angeles is the new blood of this country, and it can be the beginning. So the Fuhrer kind of wants to be, he sent his guy there to kind of be like, hey, we're going to set up this is going to be an infrastructure for us. So the motorways that the councilman wants to build and stuff like that, we want backing in it too for our own reasonings. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. So, and obviously, like I said, my history is kind of weak, but the fact of the matter is, obviously we already get the Heil Hitler shit, so it's like, okay, so we're already steamrolling towards, like I said, I think at this point, Hitler was already gaining, I mean, they even refer to him as Führer, so it's like, he's definitely already risen to power and stuff like this at the point. Like I said, it's just, I'm terrible with history, because I haven't had to study it in so long. I mean, that's a whole thing in itself, learning from history, not repeating mistakes, whole thing. But that's kind of interesting, to see that kind of being I mean, to be fair, and I think this kind of fits more so what Natalie Dormer's character is trying to do, set everything in motion. Especially because it's a whole complicated thing, because the motorway is being built to where Santiago's mom and his, their people live. It's like their homes there, and even his brother, who's played by, I'm blanking on it's Alex Rodriguez, right? Probably best thing I best know him from was CSI Miami, but he was there kind of talking, but the councilman didn't want to listen, and it's just because you have Natalie Dormer's character there whispering. It's like I said, she's already it's already there in that person. She's just tugging on those strings a little bit more. So it's almost that thing of how can you you make it seem like you're an outsider to this whole thing, but you're not just pulling the string. It feels like you're full on pushing things that kind of go down. We don't know what her thing is. I mean, it seems like she just straight up represents death itself. So it could just be the thing of she just enjoys the mayhem and the chaos of it all. Maybe she wants to she's just oh, humanity's going to go down this path anyway. I'm just giving them a little nudge down the route that they were always going to go down. Maybe that's a justification for it. I don't know. But this whole thing, for at the time, Santiago and Louis, I'm going to be all over the place, so I do apologize, but they got a job. They got their case. It's actually, Santiago isn't supposed to start work until days later, but he's getting put on a job in particular because it's there was a ritual killing, and these women's their fate. I don't know if it was with the other women. I definitely saw the scars around their mouths, but one in particular, when Lewis was looking at, we could definitely tell her lips were going. I think the other women might have been the same. I know definitely they had the scars on the side of their mouths, their throat slits, their hearts missing. I was like, that's brutal. I was like, is that I mean, you can definitely tell even the way their bodies are aligned. It was like a ritualistic killing. But basically, Santiago was saying that the message said, you take our hearts, we take yours. So, and obviously in making it seem like, okay, so this is a Mexican who did this killing. But obviously Santiago's like, it might not be. Because all it takes is someone to write something in Spanish. I mean, it's already the tensions are already high enough already with everything going on with this motorway thing. Obviously, there were already underlining issues way before now. But that's just kind of that's the newest powder keg ready to explode. And obviously, as we see at the end of the episode, like it's on all over the place, that ends up becoming the case. But obviously, Santiago, him and his brother Raul kind of have that difference of opinion on this whole situation, because Santiago is kind of you can't stop progress. He already kind of said it at himself when he was talking to his mom about it. But Raul was talking about the fact of the matter is they won't stop until we get pushed back to Mexico. Santiago is like, that's not going to happen. You're overthinking. He's like, no, this is just the beginning. It's going to be this pushing us from our home, destroying our homes just to make a motorway just so they could get to Pasadena sooner without lights is kind of what he was saying in the meeting and stuff. stuff like that. But he's saying that basically this is just, it's a domino effect. It starts here and then it starts trickling down to the point they push us back. Because even he had expressed it at the beginning. It's like, I was born here in Los Angeles, but it's just like, because I'm a different skin, you just assume, oh, you're Mexican, so you must be from Mexico. Go back. Basically, even the councilman was like, oh, maybe it's time you go back to where you came from. That didn't sound like so bad. But he was like, no, I am a U.S. Citizen. I am an American. I was born here, so. And once again, it's a complicated situation for Santiago to find himself in being, his heritage, as well as, being, because he wanted to be an officer because even his mom was like, oh, you're paving the way for people beyond you. Like, it's not going to be the easiest thing, but you're opening the pathway for the next person and the next person and the next person, so on and so forth, You had his mom praying to Santa Muerte about the whole situation, and she came to her, but it's like, and it's interesting because it's that thing of kind of like, it's almost like a Superman thing, the weight of the world on your shoulder type of thing, where it's like she explained like she's got no heart for humanity, and the reason is because she's had to be there for every death. Like, you have to eventually close your heart to it because eventually it becomes too much. She's like, I've waded through so many damn bodies, and it's never going to be in, because that's what I do. I bring the souls of the dead to heaven. So it's like, to carry such a heavy burden, you have to close yourself off, so she has to basically make herself immune to it, like not care about humans, because if she did, all that death would weigh on her, so, but his Santiago's mom is begging her to interfere, but she won't. Something I didn't talk about yet was like Santiago has the marks on his chest from when she touched him and pushed him back, and his mom looks at that as a sign, because Santiago doesn't believe, but she's like, the fact of the matter is those marks on your chest should make you believe enough that you were chosen. And it's so interesting because this whole conversation about being chosen, obviously that's something that was heavily dealt with Ethan and Vanessa, And interestingly enough, and part of me wonders, that's what I'm saying, like, am I reading too much into it? Like, obviously, when Santiago's mom was praying, there's all those wolves around, like stuffed wolves or whatever. So it's like, I mean, Ethan was like the wolf of God and everything, so what he represented. So it's like, it makes you wonder, is that supposed to be kind of an homage to the original show? Or, I mean, I think maybe it correlates in the same regard of kind of what it represents. But part of me wonders is like, do you think that's what they're doing? Like, do you think they're setting Santiago setting him up to be a protector, a wolf like Ethan was? I don't know. Maybe, like I said, maybe I'm reading too much into it. That's just kind of my mindset about it. But, we'll ultimately have to wait and see. Because initially Santiago didn't want to show up because like the bulldozers and everything are ready Monday. And he was like, I'm not going to be there. Even though his partner was like, you need to be there. But he does show up because his mom asked him to be there, because like a whole bunch of bloodshed is coming, because Santa Maria, I'm about to call her Santa Maria, Santa Muerte was kind of like basically the battle of, race against race, brother killing brother, like basically kind of a war. And she's like, is this going to be that time, is what his mom was asking, but she was like, who can say? It's like, she was like, but you can, you're kind of like all knowing. It's like, that's the thing. Is she all-knowing? Is she omnipotent? Or is it just kind of a thing of, I do what I'm supposed to do? Beyond that, these prophecies and stuff like that, is like, is that prophecy supposed to represent World War II? Or is it supposed to be something beyond that? You'd assume, because that's the looming thing around this time that's around the corner. So it makes you wonder. And sadly, when everything does ultimately play out the way it does, like, Santiago puts away his gun and he tries to talk to his, to everyone in the community. He's like, I grew up here. My house is here. The fact is, go back to your homes, because basically he didn't want things to end badly. But sadly, Natalie Dormer's characters over there kind of whispering in people's ear. One guy in particular, she found the one guy that's like, oh, just need to nudge him. Like everyone else, got to find someone, and found the one dude to nudge. Shot fires, a war, a riot, a fight ensues. And then she goes speaking into Raul's ear. And he gets so consumed, she feeds on, like, she sparks that rage inside of him, and he starts killing people. And when it comes to Luis, like, Santiago tries to reach him. He's like, Raul, stop. He's begging him, but his brother's so consumed and won't. He ends up putting his brother down to save his partner. And that cannot be an easy thing. Like, his mom will not forgive him for that, because his mom sent him there to be like, stop everything no matter what the cost. And the whole thing was brother versus brother kills brother. And it's like, it's almost once again, I don't know, like, I'm probably reading too much into it, but it immediately makes me think of the whole Ethan and Vanessa situation, him having to kill her to kind of end all of it. It just seems like, but now rather than that being the ending, it seems like rather in this case, it's the beginning, it's the spark that sets everything off. And at the end, we see Natalie Dormer's character and Santon with it kind of like face to face, and just kind of like I said, they're kind of like two sides of the same coins type of situation. So, but once again, does it make you? It makes you wonder: did she choose Santiago? Like, is the market everything? Like, is that supposed to mean something? I don't know. Maybe she cares about humans more than she kind of lets on. Maybe she did choose him, but whatever the case may be, like, he made that choice, and it's like it's going to be hard because like your brother's probably not your little brother's probably not going to forgive you. Your little sister's probably not going to forgive you. Your mom's not going to forgive you for what you've done. I mean, you won't even forgive yourself. You killed your brother, you know. Which, once again, kind of the parallels, because Ethan had the whole conflict. He didn't directly kill his siblings, but, you know, his dad made it feel like it was. He directly was involved in it and everything. You know, so it's a complicated thing that I'm wondering is that, you know, that's like I said, I keep reading too much into things, wondering if that's just me reading too much into it, or am I kind of reading things as they are meant to be seen? I don't know. This was kind of a very neat way to start off the series. Like I said, I have no idea what direction this is going to go, but I saw a glimpse of something that was basically like, oh, this show is going to involve gods and Nazis. So it's going to definitely be interesting to see where all this takes us, including, you know, because obviously Santiago still got to look into those murders and find out like what they were necessarily all about, all while this city is potentially on the verge of probably imploding with everything that's not just happening here, but eventually what's going to be resounding across the world. Like I said, we'll ultimately have to also wait and see, like I said, if there's going to be any ties to the original show as well, or is it just going to be, like I said, be its own little package deal. We'll have to wait and see. I'm very interested to see where all this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.